You can catch me later in the morning. Out with my whole team, we drank our ass off. I'ma be the one that's chillin', sitting cozy with the OG vintage Snapback on. You can catch me later in the morning. Out with my whole team, we drank our ass off. I'ma be the one that's chillin', sitting cozy with the OG vintage Snapback on. Feel good, yeah, I look good, yeah, feel good, look good. Put it down, man.
Welcome to the third episode of Snapbacks and Mimosas. I'm your host, Edenosa Erigi, aka Super Cool. We're gonna work on the nicknames, but we're gonna get there.
So fly.
So fly. I like that one better. And I have my second guest, guy that really influenced me to get started on this podcast journey. I reached out to him for some advice, and he was able to help me out. It's Klady. Klady, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited for this. I've been looking forward to it all week.
That's awesome, man. Appreciate it. And for you guys that don't know, we graduated from the University of Houston. Go Cougs.
Go
That's
Cougs,
how we know
baby.
each other. Definitely. And we became good friends. We were both in the same, we won't say the exact same social group, but being in Greek Park, we always saw each other. And
yeah,
it's always been, 100% love between us. Yeah, man. How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just working, grinding,
I feel that.
laying low, trying to go out when I can,
Mm-hmm.
trying to visit the family when I can. But yeah, man, not much is going on, just
Staying in the
chilling.
house with Corona, huh?
Staying in the house,
I feel that, man. I feel that. We all have to.
Yeah. How have you been? How you doing?
Oh, bro, it's been. I would say this week's been pretty good, actually. I came into town last weekend. Saw the mom.
Okay.
I haven't seen mom in a couple of months, so it was good to go in town to see them and see my sister and my niece. So it was a good start to the week. Get energized.
I'm sure she was happy.
Yeah, 100%. She made that known. Came home with a to-go plate. So
it's something about foreign parents and foreign mothers. I live like 15, 20 minutes away from my mom. Every time I go visit, I leave like 2 or 3 plates.
You got you, man.
And,
you got you.
At first, like I used to think it's like, man, I go home, my mom like cook all this stuff. I'm like, Mom, you don't got to do all that. I'm good, right? And then it took me a second to realize, like that's like how she like gets her fulfillment, right? Like when I leave,
the love.
She's happy about this. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Whatever you cook, and just put it in the bag. I'll take it.
It's crazy because I actually cooked dinner on the first night we stayed. I cooked dinner. And she was checking in on me like periodically, just making sure I wasn't burning shit.
Yeah.
I had to physically take her body and sit her down.
This.
Yeah, like relax. Relax. But it's crazy because once I finished cooking and everything, like I was looking at her like, what's she gonna say? Like, is it good?
Yeah.
And she was like, this is actually pretty good.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I can survive.
Yeah, made mama proud.
100%, man. And so that was just great seeing them. And I just wanted to talk about like how we were running around Greek Park back in the old days, and from intramural sports to the whatever Sage County, whatever we was doing at that time, man. And just reminisce a little bit before we actually jump straight into
Yeah, man, those were definitely good old days. And like you said, with us, it was always a vibe thing, right? It was always like we would always run into each other. It was always daps and hugs, and it was always like you said, same circles, but it wasn't always like our plan to go out. But we would always run into each other. I was telling somebody, I was like, I'm about to be in Eddie's podcast. And they're like, man, I see him everywhere. Whether I'm in Austin at a bar, or I'm in Dallas somewhere, I'll turn around and Eddie's there. I'm like, dude, that's how I always run into you.
Yeah, it's never planned, man. It's
Yeah.
never planned. And honestly, that's just how you know, like the connection is genuine, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like a fake, nothing fake about it.
Right.
So, yeah, and I don't know, man. It's been always been like that since day one. And to be honest, like I can't say like this is the first day I met Klady. Like there's no,
Dude, that's so true.
you know what I'm saying? It's just like that. You know what I'm saying? And I always respected that and love that about this relationship that we have.
Same. Well, before we get going, I got you something. I got you a bottle, but I'm gonna drink it.
I feel that. It's all good. You know, I stay poured up already.
Oh
So
my God, you beat me to it.
You stay poured up already. I'll wait before I sip. We'll sip together.
Let's toast to your new project, new beginnings.
Yeah, man. Respect.
And road to success, as they say. And put some juice in there just for the color.
That's what it is. Color it up.
Yeah, I went with a pink lemonade.
Oh.
I'm gonna change the vibes out here.
See, it's the first. Hey,
yeah,
y'all see it here first. When you come on,
you know, what I'm saying?
Come with some real shit.
Yeah, you gotta stick out a little bit.
Stick out a little bit.
But cheers, my brother.
Hey man, appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Oh yes, I need that drink after today's work day.
Respect, man. And yeah, dude, I wanted to like jump in and talk about like how, I mean, you currently have your own podcast, Two Mic podcast, and I was listening to it, and you were telling me when we were originally talking about, you know, me starting this podcast, how it came to be, and like what was your idea about that? Can you share like how you came to start your own podcast?
Yeah, so the idea started maybe late last year, like November, early December. Like I had been thinking about it a little bit before then. I would like test it and tell people, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. What you think? You know, everybody's very encouraging with it. But it was still just an idea. I was just kind of letting it brew and see like how would I go about it, doing some research here and there. Then maybe in December, my friend Brian has a podcast and he asked me to be on it. And we had a real genuine conversation. You know, I got the itch for it. I was like, oh yeah, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy these conversations that you can dig down on topics and bond with people. And then 2020, it was just, I was turning 30. So I turned 30 in March. But 2020, I was just looking like, man, I need to do some new stuff. So I looked at it as like the year of self-investment. And I just wanted to do new projects, new everything. So I was like, I already had the idea podcast. So I just like jumped in it. Never really put any content out there. Never messed with any production.
Yeah.
I never did any, I never played any musical instruments like growing up. Like literally knew nothing about like this life or this project style. So it was just like, let me just jump on it. Got my friend Brian on there because I already knew that it was going to be a good conversation. I had my friend Enrique the next episode. And it was just slowly like, not even growing, is just like I said, it was all about self-investment. So it's just like, I'm doing it for me. That's the whole thing about it, you know, like there's not really a theme to it. It's just me and my friends are hanging out, having a conversation. Whenever a topic I feel like this is a good one that we can record and we can dig down on, like let's just start recording it. And I kind of view my podcast as a snapshot of like where I am today mentally, right? 10, 20 years later, I could look back at some of these recordings and listen back to them like, oh man, I can't believe I thought like that, or like, oh wow, I did think like that, you know, whatever the case may be. It's almost like a picture of my brain today. So that was the reason for it, just finding new hobbies and actually just diving into and doing something new with like not knowing anything about it. I wanted to get myself like in uncomfortable positions and then seeing how I like would develop in that situation.
I mean, just to like think about that, because I mean, people people think podcasts
Mm.
or doing something in general that's creative is like you have to have like the artistic itch for it,
Right.
or like some type of training artistically. But in the grand scheme of things, it's just you taking like a jump into something that you don't know nothing about.
Right.
And throughout that whole journey, you learn, about it, but you also learn about yourself at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's crazy to think that you can tap into your artistic side,
Right.
through this, and without having proper training. Let's just say you have to have
Right.
training. You don't. It's me and you just expanding like on our thoughts and talking back and forth, and hopefully people listen. That's like the
Right.
end of it.
Yeah, and then I view a lot of times things like creative things, creative content, we hold ourselves back with it, right? It's that fear of acceptance, or
Mm-hmm.
the fear of failure, or it's just personal fear. When I'm sure you can attest to this, the moment you put something out there, the people that see it, that reach out to you, it's all 9 times out of 10 is gonna be positive.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially when it's your friends. So it's like, that's encouraging enough. When you see that and you like just get the ball rolling a little bit, then you just realize that, oh man, I was just in my head the whole time. Right.
Yeah.
And even if people don't like it, it's like, well, I'm not doing this for you. Right.
For
like,
you,
if you
yeah.
don't like it, you could skip next. Like that's cool too. Yeah.
Not gonna hurt me.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
watch it through though. Watch it all the way through,
Yeah.
please.
This one's gonna be good.
This is gonna be good. Yeah. So, okay, I know that most of your guests that you have on show are people that you like how I'm doing, people that you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking about it, it's kind of you catching up with where they're at in life as well.
Right.
And you're both sharing this story about your growth. And let's just say, being in the fraternity, like, would you ever think that these people will make this jump to where they're at currently from what you thought back in the day? And
Yeah.
I think listen to your podcast, like that's what I got from that, which is like, I know that guy or know that woman, and from where they were there to where they are now is a totally different like space mentally.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Not just for looking at with my friends or people I knew in college, but even just personally, right? Like that shift is so different for everybody. From, like you were saying, straight from like the fraternity row to now, like late 20s or early 30s. That mind shift has been so drastic for everybody. But I don't know. One thing that stayed consistent with our group is like everyone's still so close. I don't know. It's because we're all like able to attract like-minded people, or maybe like kind-hearted people is better than like-minded. It's just that the relationships have been so real and so authentic that whatever the journey is, the support is almost the same. But it is interesting seeing like some of the wildest things you've done with some people and what they're doing now. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Are you doing that? Okay.
Yeah.
That's true, man. That's true.
Yeah.
And I can attest to that too, knowing some of your brothers and then knowing my brothers as well. Like honestly, that's why you join, is because you guys are like-minded. And
right.
for that, I guess that bond not to fizzle out or die out, like since we graduated, let's say 5 years since we graduated, it's crazy to think that.
Yeah.
But it also props to keeping that relationship intact, because that does take work.
Right.
You can't just go pick it right back up. Sometimes you can, but you have to work on a relationship that way.
No, you definitely do. Relationships, friendships, these are all just like anything else, right? If you just let it go without giving it attention, it's going to fizzle out, right? That's just human nature. Like if you don't reach out to me for so long, it's going to be a matter of time before I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to reach out back, right? It's an ego thing too. Like it's but for me, like, I don't know, it's been like that since high school, where I've been in this like groups or circle of friends where it's like they've just all been like the realest people. Like I've gotten so lucky with my friends, and I don't know if it's because I moved here when I was young from a big family, and then here just like my sister, my parents, to where like my friends now have like become like my actual family, right? So it's nothing for me to send a text like, hey, you good? What's going on? What you been up to? Or a phone call. I prefer phone calls, and I do most of my phone calls like on my car rides.
Yeah.
I'm always like talking to somebody, just checking in. And people always tell me all the time, like, dude, you're so good at checking in with people. But I'm like, I just look at it like, oh, I miss this person. Let me give it a call. That's really all it is. So
it
to
pops
me,
in your mind like that.
yeah. So to me, it doesn't feel like work, or it doesn't feel like I'm like trying to maintain these relationships. It is what it is. Like, it's just part of my family now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
I agree
I mean,
with that.
you have the same personality, right? Where it's like, and anybody, you can talk to anybody, at least people that I know at U of H, and they know you, right? And it's always good things to say about you, or great things to say. And I think it's the same like outlook.
It's that mindset.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Like, I would tell a story. No one has ever heard this story before, but I'm gonna tell the story because it happened my freshman year in college, and I was walking to Moody, no, the cafeteria in Cougar. Well, it doesn't matter. We're going to some cafeteria.
Yeah.
And I met this young lady, let's say like a week before, introduced myself, and we were talking, and like, okay, I'm new on campus, like, we're gonna be cool, we're friends. I see her a week later, and I forgot her name. I felt like complete shit. Like, I wouldn't say like that feeling left me like that day. Like, I felt like shit. I thought about that interaction, like, let's say for like that whole week.
Yeah.
Like, and that stuck with me. I just like, am I superficial? Like, I know I'm not superficial. Like, but like that interaction of me just like forgetting someone's name was like, damn, like, do I not care about people? And then since that moment, like, I made it like my like whole goal was like, okay, I will never like let that situation ever happen again. Like, because I just felt like shit.
Yeah.
And like that young lady felt like shit too, you know. And I was just like, dude, and that's not my personality. Like, that's not who I am. So like, since that interaction, I was just like I gotta care. Even if I meet that person once, like, that's gonna be like that one interaction that like I'm not gonna forget, and you're not gonna forget, because like that's how I want every interaction to be like.
Yeah. I wish I could say I have the same memory, but I don't, because I forget people's people's names. Bro, I forget people's names right after they tell me.
I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I remember everyone's name. Like, I'm not gonna say that. That's crazy.
But you see, with me, it's easy because 9 times out of 10 they forget my name, because it's so different. 100%. I'm like, if they get offended, I'm like, all right, well, what's my name? I'll quiz them.
Get that back. That's a tennis serve right there. That's right. I got you.
No, you can't be mad.
That's true, man.
Yeah. That's funny.
So okay. So with the podcast, is there a goal that you wanted to reach with this?
So the main goal was just getting in a habit of starting new hobbies. That was the first goal, right? Was and the reason how I came up to that was so my parents, my dad's birthday is like December 24th. Then we got Christmas. Then my mom's birthday is January 3rd. Like, they're so close together, right?
Yeah.
And me and my sister are always like, dude, what do we buy our parents? Like, every year we like get together and try to think, and it's always like clothes or shoes or a watch or like, you know, it's the same thing. And it's like, why can't we figure out what to give them? Like, why is it so hard to shop for our parents? My sister and I were talking about it. We realized that, well, they're just like straight blue collar foreign parents. We're just like, they're just
working,
like, working and grinding. That's it, right? I'm like, well, like, our parents don't have any hobbies. right? And that's sad to say, but it's the truth, right? Like my
Yeah.
parents don't have many hobbies. Like, so I'm like, man. So I started thinking about my life. I was like, I'm about to turn 30. I could blink and next thing it's gonna be 40. And what all I've done is just like focus on work and like try to go up this like corporate ladder, you know, just like to move to a bigger apartment or a bigger house, or you know, it's like there's this little game of just moving one space at a time. I was like, well, I need to like be comfortable, like doing new things. Obviously, I can't be out hooping anymore. I messed up my wrist. That's why I messed up my wrist. I don't want to be like just drinking at bars every day. Like I need to find something new. So that's how the podcast idea started. So I like got focused on that and started the podcast. And then I don't really have a theme to the podcast as far as the conversations and interviews. It's just letting it take its own life, right? Let it take its own form. And then wherever it goes, and I'll be ready for that. Whether it gets huge and successful, great, cool. Whether it's just I do 20, 30, 100 episodes, that's great too. I look at that, the whole podcast thing is just as the journey. And it's cliche, but it's not like mainly about a destination. Like it's just like the journey of growth. Like that's the thing. So ever since that podcast, I started podcasting, like I've gotten like so many new things where it's just like I ran a half marathon all of a sudden, never ran before, but it was just like, okay, go for 2020, do a marathon. I ran that in April. New goal now is learning Spanish. So I'm like enrolled in Spanish classes with like a teacher, with two of my friends, and we like do Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
Mondays and Thursdays. So it's like that's the new one. Then after that, I'm hoping by the end of the year, I'm hoping to be pretty fluent in Spanish, and then find a new goal and just keep going. You know, like I just look at it as why not, right? Like
Why not?
You know how Russell Westbrook has his saying like why not? It's like I'm like, dude, why not try that? I feel like I almost owe it to myself to try new things, you know, and like
I feel that,
and like teach myself new things.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to hear you say something in Spanish.
Oh man, como se dice? Dang, I forgot to say congratulations though.
We're gonna have you back on, and we're gonna do it all in Spanish. Don't worry.
Spanish. I'll be here. Yeah, está aquí.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
I respect that because it's taking yourself out of a comfort zone, and like, because the way I feel is you only grow when you're uncomfortable, because when you get comfortable, like you get fat. That's how I look at it. Like,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're just eating. And you, like,
I'm trying to get to a level where I'm comfortable in uncomfortable situations. Like that's where I want to be. Like where the most uncomfortable for everybody it is. That's where I want to be. Like, oh yeah, I thrive here. Like that's the mentality I'm trying to get to. That I'm trying to embrace all these struggles and all these like, okay, I can't go outside and do this. Okay, well, what can I do? Let me focus on this, right? Like, let me jump on this. Let me read on this. Like, I fell in love with reading, which I took my time graduating from college because I didn't like reading. And then like after that, I'm like, oh, let me like make reading, like force myself to make reading a hobby. Right. And now I'm like reading like investment books and like, I'm reading like creative living books and stuff like that. I'm like, just like things like for personal growth.
I feel that because I thought the exact same thing. I got, as soon as it popped in my mind, I went straight on Amazon on my phone, and I ordered 3 books. And I always wanted to read The Alchemist.
Yeah, I read that recently too.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And there's some hidden gems in there, man. Like I was reading, I was just like, okay, I knew this, but like reading it, it's like a different, like, okay, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like I picked that up, and I picked up The 4 Agreements.
Okay, that's a good one too.
And I saw Tom Brady was reading it, and I mean, obviously he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
So like, it was working for him. Like I'm trying to pick like people's like minds of great people, and like try to like put that into my own life, because like I said, you got to always be growing. And I never liked reading in my life. And
Right.
my major was straight reading. Like political science was nothing
Mm-hmm.
but reading. But it's different when you read because you have to than reading because you want to.
Yeah.
I feel like there's like a different level of growth in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's just because you're more interested in that topic now, or if your mental maturity is leveled up a little bit. I don't know what that is, right? But I'm the same way, where it's like I've read both the books you just mentioned, right? So it's like, and I also like, I got a like Audible subscription now, so I like listen to a book a month as well on the side. So I'm like, and then I like that, you see, like you mentioned Tom Brady, you see these people that inspire you, and you're like your role models, and then you're like, oh, he's reading that. I got into meditating. I meditate now. Like, I couldn't sit still before. Now I'm like sitting there for 15 minutes, like just breathing and working on my breathing exercises. And I'm like, all these successful people and just people I look up to are like preaching these things, right? They're telling you,
They're telling you if it's working for them,
this is what I do, right?
Yeah.
This works for me. And it's like, I was telling myself, why not? Like, I owe it to myself to at least try it, right? Like, so taking this back to the podcast, like if I was to stop the podcast today, I would be happy with what like I did with that, just because it led me to this mindset. It led me to whatever the next thing is going to be, right? It's
100%.
It's all about that growth. And I just didn't want to get stuck in that just work environment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I feel like we're at that age where we have two choices, because we can get stuck in that work, or we can still work, but we can also find like another outlet that can help us relieve ourselves of stress. Because I feel like if we go take it back to our parents, they didn't have a thought about let's work outside of work. Let's do something outside of work. So there's like a stress level that builds up because your mind is only on that one thing. And we're at that level now currently where we can make that conscious effort of like, I know where this leads because I've seen that with my mom and I've seen that with my dad. I know where that's going to look like. So what can help me like avoid that type of stress in my life?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And I don't know, maybe just because right after college, you actually get to feel the stress of life, you know, you can actually like sense it. Like, it's almost like a shadow on your back. It's like, oh, I'm stressed today. You know, it's not the same college stress where it was an exam or some homework or something, you know, it's like, oh, this matters. I need to pay my bills on this. I need
pay
to
my
like,
bills. My name is on this, like my reputation.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I mean, I'm not going to say being a workaholic is bad, but I feel like you should have a healthy balance of yourself, your personality as a person, as well as like work.
Yeah.
You said something about holding yourself accountable when you were talking about starting the podcast. And that stuck with me because I practiced that same thing when I was starting this podcast. Like, let's say probably a month before I dropped that first episode, I released the logo for the podcast. And at that time, I haven't bought the mic. I haven't looked into like, excuse me, I haven't looked into like everything I need to start a podcast, but like I knew that that's what I wanted and that's what I needed to do, was to hold myself accountable. So I'm not gonna say everyone that's watching, yes, I definitely used y'all, but I needed y'all to know that I was gonna start this project, so y'all can be on my ass about it. Like, you said you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it, like, you know what I'm saying? And I know you mentioned that in one of your episodes where you're talking about how you had to use that, tell your friends so they can hold you accountable. Can you speak on that part?
I literally did what you did, right? When you called me and you were like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this, like, you got any tips? You know, like I was doing the same thing. I was just like, hey, I'm gonna start a podcast, right? I just kept saying that. I'm gonna start a podcast. I kept telling people that. And not necessarily that they were holding it over my head, like, oh, you're gonna do this, but it's just like, oh, I already told people I'm gonna do it. Right? Like I don't like to lie to people I care about. I don't like to lie, period. But it's like, if I care about you, if I love you, if you're my family, you're my friend, and I'm telling you, hey, I'm gonna be there. I want to be there, right? So I did that just for personal accountability. Say, hey, yeah, I mentioned I'm gonna do this now, and then it's almost one of those things where you just speak it into existence.
True.
Right? Like I wanted to just put it out there. I read this in this book I was reading. It's called Big Magic, and it was saying you just, ideas are always going to be in the world, right? And then sometimes some ideas are not for you, but if you put it out there, somebody else will grab it and do it, right? So it's going to happen. There's minimal things that haven't been created yet. But the thing is, it hasn't been created by you, whatever that thing is, right? So the podcast, there's millions of podcasts out there, but there's not one where, and it might not go and be the most popular, but like I'm doing this for me and for my friends and for my circle right now, and wherever that goes, whoever wants to join in is welcome to. But I had to be accountable to just get that started because it's brand new for me too. You know, I just had to buy 2 mics. I didn't know how to record. I just use QuickTime Zone. I don't know how to edit. I had to like figure out, and I purposely like put the first few episodes how they were, because that was the level I was at the time. Like I didn't know nothing about taking background noise out. I didn't know nothing about like zero.
Learn on the go. Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
So I'm like watching YouTube videos of what to do and how to use these programs. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put them out now. And then I want this podcast to grow with how I'm getting comfortable and growing with it. So, and I wanted people to see that. So it's been enjoyable. You know, I haven't recorded in about a month, just because that's when I like started this whole Spanish thing, and I've been like
focusing on that. Yeah.
So like focus on that, but then that might also just be an excuse I'm making to like myself. You know, just this is inspiring me to get back on it. So I appreciate you.
Got you.
Yeah. How was your experience with that?
So far, well, my experience with holding myself accountable, or where I'm at currently. Well, holding myself accountable. Honestly, I told a few people before I dropped the logo. I told a few people that that's what I was thinking on doing, and that's where my heart was. Mostly, you tell your closest people that you have around you, because like, you know, they should know you need some support, and they should know about it. So, you know, you tell them, and the people that are your friends, they're going to make sure that you're on your shit. You know what I'm saying? And but as soon as I told them, that's when I text my friend Jason, who was on the last podcast, that I needed a logo. And he never done a logo before, so like it was new for him too. So we're both going through that artistic experience, and just putting that stuff out in the world, like you said, like I that first round of like emotions, and like first round of like people like seeing your first work and not saying it sucks, even if they're being nice, that's still cool. Like that's still like, okay, you know, like that's the first like exhale of, okay,
right,
all right, now I can do the rest of them. And honestly, like this mic, shout out to my boy Diego. He heard that, he watched it, and he said that he wanted to invest into this podcast, and I thought that was really, really dope. Yeah. So shout out Diego. He bought this mic for me, and he said he wanted to invest in it. And so every time I look at this mic and I think about quitting, I can't.
Yeah, dude, that
you know what I'm saying? Like
that's the love, and that's the accountability right there.
100%. And I mean, I'm not gonna quit Diego, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But like, that was like, even that form of like affirmation was dope to me. Like I mean, if I'm not gonna say I cried, but it touched the soul. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where I'm at, and through these couple of episodes that I've done, hearing people's feedback about it, and like the gems and the nuggets that they taken out of not just me talking, but like my guests that I have on the show, that just like proves that what I thought was correct. Like people do need to hear some of these things.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just an internal like question that I had about myself, but other people are having the same questions.
Right. But it's so important. It's so important because, you know, like obviously, well, at least personally, I enjoy podcasts, right? Listening to them. I listen to a couple of different ones and I enjoy it, right? But it's like, they're so big, right? Where it's like their problems or their outlook and everything is not the same as me and you, right? So it's like our group and our circle can relate to these things. It's so authentic where it's like you could sit back and listen to a conversation. You're like, oh man, I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad I'm not alone in this. Or like I was,
100%.
I think is the opposite of that. Let me reach out to him and tell him why. Or you know, and those are important conversations.
Yeah, and I respect the constructive criticism too, because like I said, this is our first time doing this, so
right.
I'm learning as I go. Like each episode is a new like experience, because honestly, I mean, not all my guests are going to be the same type of person.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so each person is a different experience, which I'm finding out to be enjoyable. Like for this whole experience, it's like each conversation takes a soul of itself.
Yeah, it's interesting also when you like listen back to it and then you listen to yourself for the first time, you're like, oh man, like I sound weird or I did this. And then you like pick these little tendencies that you didn't even know you had. Then you know, I'm like, oh, my first one I kept saying yeah, or I kept saying something. I'm like, oh, I gotta stop doing that. Next one is something different. Or and it's like you play this little game of like of growth with yourself, right? But then any help and any criticism you could get from your friends, it's always a plus. So,
always a plus, man. Always a plus. All right. And so you said you're using this to, you know, grow as a person. And you mentioned that the half marathon that you ran. And on your latest podcast that you did, you explained that whole thing. Can we take a dive into that? Because you actually didn't run that race like physically, like around.
Yeah, it was. So I messed up my wrist. Or I hurt my wrist. It's been almost 2 years now, where I like can't do much with my right hand. It's almost useless. I'm going through stem cell injections procedures right now. But I was like, so I hadn't worked out in a while. I went from like working out every day to hooping twice a week to all of a sudden couldn't do anything. Right. And I like start sensing myself like getting depressed for the first time in my life. And I was like snapping at people, or like my arguments were like coming out of nowhere. And I was like, what? Like, I like sensed it. Like no one even mentioned to me, but I was just like, why am I like getting so pissed off at like things that aren't even like big deal, you know?
Yeah.
And then I like realized it's because like I'm not able to work out. Like I'm not able to get all this like frustration or like everyday stresses out. So I was like, I need to figure out something to do. So I just like start searching marathons. I was like, let's see what's in Houston. And then there was one like in Vintage Park, and they were like, I was like, I'm not ready for a full marathon. I was like, but I was like, I'll do a half.
Yeah.
And a couple actually Klady and Ivana, they ran a half, right? So it was around that time I was thinking, I was like, man, if they could do it, I could definitely do it. Right. That's how I like look at things. Like I look at things, I look at who's doing. I'm like, if they could do it, I could do it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's motivation.
So it's personal motivation. Like so I hit up Katie. I was like, hey, what'd you do to like run this half? And she sent me like her training program that she had. It was like a 10-week program. So I was like, you know what? I like went and I paid for the half. This was in January. Yeah, in January. I was like, and the half was in April. So I was like, I'm gonna pay for it. And if I put money on something, I'm gonna have to do it.
Yeah. 100%.
Right. Like if I invest in it, I'm doing it. If I buy the mics, I'm a record something. Right. So I paid for it. Next time I like start training. I went and bought some shoes. And I was like 7 weeks into my training, and then COVID happens. And then they had the option of re-signing for next year's half, or doing it running yourself, and then you just like virtually submit the times. So I was like, you know, man, I'm already like 70% through with the training. I gotta just run it. So I had to go and run it by myself. I went to Memorial Park. I ran the loop 4 times plus some. Man, it was so much harder to do it by myself. Like, dude, running that third loop, I was like, man, I don't have no one out here the sides yelling.
No
no
one
one's
saying
passing
you can
waters.
do it.
I have no one in front of me to chase. It's just like, but I was like, I can't stop. So I did it, and it was crazy. It was crazy to think that I went from like maybe running 2-3 miles every month or something like that. Like, I wasn't running much to being able to run 13 miles nonstop. And that was just one of those things of 2020. It was just all about self-investment. So it was really just because for the first time in my life, like I like felt depressed, and I didn't know what to do, like to get out of that. And that was a worry. That was a big worry of and an eye opener of like what people deal with, you know?
Yeah.
And how people like deal with their depression and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I had to get myself out of it. I
respect that. I mean, I think it's harder too. Like doing it by yourself it's way harder than doing it like when people are cheering you on and you got posters up and you see them, you're like, I can push through this last. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a mental like fight. And for you to complete that by yourself is a big feat.
I appreciate that. And all the people that run full marathons, I'm sorry, I'm not at that level yet.
Yeah.
When I was training, I was like, I'll do a half now. Maybe by the end of the year, I'll do a full.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished the half, I was like, nah, I'm good.
Nah, I did it. I'm good.
This is it for me.
I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. Yeah, man. And just I wanted to see, you talked about you mentioned like your depression. Is that like a mental like barrier that you have to like overcome? I mean, with the wrist injury, but something that you never had to deal with before. Like that's something for a person that's like us, that's very social. I would say very positive. Like,
right.
I wouldn't say negative thoughts don't come into our minds, but like we can fight them off easily.
Right.
Stepping into something that's new like that, like, was that scary for you?
Yeah, I mean, when it finally clicked that, oh, this is what it is, when I could finally step back and like see it, I was like, oh, you've never like dealt with this before. You don't. I didn't know how to react to it, and it wasn't like it wasn't depressed in the sense of like I didn't want to go outside, like I didn't want to do things. It was depressed that I couldn't do these things, like things. Your life has
changed.
Yeah, these things that I would do every day, all of a sudden is like, okay, all I could do now is just like hang out with friends, go out, like I was still me, right? I was still me around people that I cared about, but then it was just something like slowly eating at me, and it's like I'm talking to my mom on the phone, and it's like, I don't even know, like my mom asks the same questions on the phone, like, how's your day? What'd you do today? The same parent thing. I'm like, I'm over here snapping at her, like, why you keep asking me the same things? Like, she didn't change, right? Like, just being her. Like, why am I mad at this all of a sudden? Like, why is this bothering me? And it was like, that was kind of scary, where it's like, oh man, like this could get bad, right? Like I could easily substitute this with just like coming home after work and like having a drink every day, or going out and getting a hammer every weekend. That could easily be the path, right? Because it's just, you just kind of like,
it happens.
Yeah, it happens to a lot of people, and that's just how the way you deal with like not having those feelings. So for me, it was more of just, I gotta attack this in a healthy way. And luckily I have a lot of good people around me where I could draw inspirations from, and they will support me. Like, so like starting the podcast made it easy because it was a lot of support. It was a lot of encouragement. It was a lot, like I text you after you put that first episode. I was like, how do these all these not even congratulations, but just like people reaching out, like how crazy good does that feel, right? It's like, it's
felt amazing.
So once that happened, I was like, okay, well that's a trick. I gotta keep myself busy with healthy hobbies and healthy activities. So
Yeah.
that's why all of a sudden I've just been like diving into everything like I know nothing about. I was like, let's figure it out. Like
I think
I've fallen in love with that feeling of figuring something small every day, right? Like that's been interesting.
I think it's hard to get to the point where you have like self-awareness about yourself. I mean, you can be aware of mental things, like well, I wouldn't say mental things, but a lot of things. But like being self-aware is kind of hard for people to grasp. Is like you said, you have that internal conversation, like, why am I acting this way? Like, what internally is happening to me? And I feel like a lot of people haven't gotten to that point with themselves that they can be self-aware of themselves, or even if they are self-aware about themselves, it's choosing to act upon it in a healthy way or act upon it in a non-healthy way.
Right.
And I mean, some people go and see therapists about it, and they can guide you into the right direction. But being able to look at yourself in the mirror and see that and fix that internally is like a next level. Like I applaud you for that, honestly.
I appreciate it.
And I mean, I wish, I mean, hopefully us talking about it right now can like help somebody in the future about it, like, and just sit down and have that internal conversation.
Yeah. I mean, in January, I sat down and like I just like wrote like some yearly goals and like some like 5-year goals and stuff like that. And actually, one of my goals on there was like, and not because of the small depression I was dealing with, but it was just like I talked to a couple of friends about just like they talked to therapists. I was like, oh, I'm gonna find a therapist just so I can have these healthy conversations, right? But then once I started the podcast, that became like so therapeutic, where it was like the conversation was already happening. Maybe I'll still go to at least one session because I at least want to know what it's like in that room to have an open conversation with someone you know nothing about, and have them lead the conversation. I still want to experience that. So I'm still planning on doing
Same.
that goal.
Same, yeah.
But like you said, these conversations have been, especially when they're so open and so honest, it's been very helpful. So yeah, like you said, if this could help anybody, I'm glad to help them with it. I'm here to talk to them too.
100%.
How was it for you when you were first able to have that outlook on yourself, like you said?
I think I developed this outlook on life like I want to say my junior year in high school. I think junior year of high school was probably the roughest part of my life by far. It was just like a whole lot of changes in my life in terms of like.
That's
family.
when you moved, right? Or no?
Yeah. No, I was still in Texas,
okay.
But there was I was moving around a lot, and the family structure wasn't as strong, and it took. I mean, you know, everyone knows I walk with a limp. I have cerebral palsy, like a mild case of it. And so like I've always also been self-conscious and self-aware of that because like I've always had that since like I was a child. So like I call that like my superpower because like I'm aware of what people are thinking already because like, I've been dealing with it. But that was different from like growing up with that and not. I mean, you don't decide if you have it or not. You just have it. So like you just deal with that. Right. So like my junior year was different because like that was new. Everything was new, and I know it took a lot of self-reflection internally for me to come to grips with what that situation was, and then being strong not only for myself. I don't think I could only be strong for myself. I had to be strong for like my whole family at that point. It's just how I thought about it. So I had to like find ways to cope internally, which I usually thought about like music. I'm huge into music. So, I mean, Kid Cudi, anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge Kid Cudi fan. And his words on that first album was pretty much like the feelings that I was feeling at that moment.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I would deal with it. I would talk with my friends. I actually had a teacher in high school that I would call and I would talk with him. And actually, I just linked back up with him.
Nice.
I want to say a couple of weeks ago, I talked to him. He wanted to talk to me about the whole climate of racial injustice and stuff, and we talked about it. And so I always valued his his thoughts, and I felt honored that he called me to like talk about it because he said he valued my opinion on it. So we talked about it, and that's just another relationship that I thought was wild. But and I really do appreciate it. But just growing through that junior year into my senior year, and it coming into college where like honestly college wasn't that freshman year in college wasn't like scary at all for me. Like it really wasn't. Like it was like a time where I could excel. Like I got past that high school year, those 2 years. I got past that. And like now, like I'm ready to take anything on. Like nothing scares me. Like literally nothing scares me now. That I can go and attack anything that I see. Like I set my mind on, and I feel like a lot of people can like sense that. Like, Eddie's not afraid to do a lot of things. Like Eddie's not afraid of getting on stage. Eddie's like because like why should I be afraid?
Right.
Because you've already lived through like the worst time. You know what I'm saying? So like even if something goes bad now, like now I have like that reference point to go back to. And that's how I feel like that whole learning experience is. Like now I have a reference point. Like okay,
do you ever feel like you had to like grow up too quickly?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. 100%. 100. I mean, not to say I wouldn't say that I didn't have a childhood. I obviously had a childhood, but like me mentally, mentally, I grew up like way fast. And I mean, I've always been told I was mature for my age, but it worked though. It helped.
Yeah, it's definitely a blessing when you could turn it into your advantage, and you direct that pain in the right direction. Like,
yeah.
And obviously you're a smart dude, and like you say, you're not afraid to go get what you want. So I applaud you for that.
Hey,
and thanks for sharing, man. That's dope.
Hey, got you. Cheers to that.
Yeah, man. What's your? I mean, I know you're just starting in the podcast journey, but you're putting a lot of content out, right? And how has that been for you so far? Like,
it's honestly, it's probably thinking of who I should interview next, and the content that person would bring. That's the difficult part. It's not. I don't think about what I'm going to ask probably until the day of, so I know it's fresh. But like picking the direction I want the episode to go in is like that's the hardest part. And the decision usually comes down to like, okay, I know that the conversation between me and the person is going to be great because it's just me talking to my friend, and there's going to be gems in that. But like, excuse me, what's the message that I want to put out there at this time? And I mean, I picked you because we already have this relationship, and you helped me start this whole journey. But I also know your story, and I feel like your story would be very powerful to share with whoever wants to listen to it and get a gem out of it. And so like I know it takes me a week to decide. I always have like 3 people, and then it takes me a week to decide like, okay, this is who I want to interview now. And it's not really a criteria. It's more like a feeling, I would say.
Right.
I would say, yeah. And it's difficult because I know a lot of people are going to want to be interviewed, but a lot of people can't be interviewed, and it's not.
Yeah, because you know a lot of people.
Yeah.
people say I know a lot of people. You gotta meet Eddie, bro.
it's just I want to make sure that the information that I'm bringing to people is actually like legit information.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that I won't interview those people, I will, but it's just gonna be on some crazy other shit.
Yeah, you just gotta give us some time. Like, look at
give us exactly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to let me build a little bit.
It's a lot, you know.
Exactly.
I feel you on that. That does get because sometimes, and you don't know if your friends or people are feeling this, but it's like when you're in a room and you've interviewed somebody, right? And it's like, and then if the podcast gets brought up, it's like, oh, are you going to be on it? It's like they have the conversation among them. It's like, hey man, stop like inviting people on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know, and I know y'all had that conversation. I know y'all did.
Mm-hmm.
I know y'all did.
Hey man, it's only going to get worse from here.
It's like, yeah, right. Don't
conversation.
Worry.
Yeah, no, it's
We'll get to
I feel you. It's like sometimes it's like, well, I got to get this person on here because I want to talk about this. Or I want to talk about this. Or like I have like a vision of like at least a main topic that I want to like touch on, right? That I'm interested in. It's like, okay, I got to get this, but I got to wait for the timing to be right. So it's
it's timing. But then sometimes it's timing.
And then other times we just kind of like overthink all the things because like it is your content and it is your creation. It's like you still care for it. You want it to like go as perfect as it can, right? So you do like kind of mentally check these boxes of topics and everything else, like the time, what's going on in the world and everything. Yeah.
Exactly. It's perfect. So I mean, who knows who my next interview is going to be for next week? I guess you got to tune in to find out. But yeah,
man, I already subscribed to it, so
hey. It's a plug-in right there.
subscribe below.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, what do you have planned for the rest of 2020?
Man, that's a good question. So the main, I know I've said it many times, right? The main thing right now is Spanish. Like I'm working to being trilingual. Maybe after that, learn something else. But hopefully we get out again. I wanted to have a whole bunch of weddings and trips coming up, but I don't even know what's going to happen with those.
True.
You know, that's
Texas is bullshitting.
It's hard to plan things now. It's just I need to find a new challenge. I know that I haven't decided that yet, and I got into investing, which that was another new thing. Like I didn't know nothing about stocks, and so I just like dove into it. I was like, okay, well, let me download Robinhood and figure it out.
Yeah,
right? So it's a lot of whatever I'm feeling like. Hey, this is gonna be a good challenge. I'm gonna just go for it, and it's been very exciting.
Feel that.
Yeah, it's. What about you? What are your 2020 goals looking like?
That's crazy. I really haven't thought that far out. Only been really micro focused on like this right now. But
well, what's your goal for the podcast? Like how many episodes you're trying to put out a month?
So I'm trying to hit 2 a month, the beginning of the month and the middle of the month. So it gives me enough time to like think about where I want to go with it for that week. Gives me enough time to think about it. And then like I want to like the actually it's easier just to paint the picture of where I want this podcast to go than so eventually I want it to be able to reach the masses, but my short goal is once I get to, let's say, if I get to like 500 subscribers, something like that, around that time, I want to like release like some clothing for it, you know, because I wanted to like expand the brand. So I've already thought about like the hat design and the shirt design. I've already thought about hopefully I can get a champagne sponsorship.
Let's go. Let's go.
You
Yes.
know, I've already thought about that, and
Yes.
you know,
Bro, well, you're putting it out there, and these things are gonna happen.
exactly,
You know?
exactly. And
I'd
go
say,
back to this episode.
yeah, bro. I'd say put out the hat logo out now and start taking pre-orders. Why not?
True. I think it'll be already. I think I'm gonna start with the shirt. I think 500 is gonna take a long time, so I probably would do that before I hit 500. But I already have the shirt design,
Nice.
and I think it's gonna be super dope. I just like I have a vision of just seeing like being somewhere random, and I just see like my shirt.
Yeah.
I don't get like asked for autograph though. Like I don't want any of that shit. I just want to see my shirt. And be like, damn, like I created that shit. You know?
Yeah.
And I touched on it earlier on my earlier podcast about like I've always had like a creative side and stuff like that. And like you said that you're feeling like depressed because you couldn't do your athletics, you know, being who you are. Like that's how I felt like. And like I think I know that this is the platform for me to express whatever thought that I have, good or bad. I mean, because I can't please everybody, but I think that's where I want to take it.
Let me ask you this: so, for your viewers, your listeners who are thinking about embarking in a creative journey and trying to figure out a way they could put out, whether it be a podcast, a painting, music, anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell them? What tips? What encouragement? What would you say to your listeners?
First thing first is always act on what you think you want to do. Like, don't push aside that feeling of what you want to create. Like, because a lot of people do that. We just push that shit to the side because like it might not be convenient for you at the moment. But all it takes is you releasing a logo on IG for you to get started. Like that's like it's that simple, you know. And then secondly, seek advice. Like that's the easiest thing because there's people that's already laid the groundwork for you. Like why would you make it harder for yourself? You go seek out advice for people that are more knowledgeable about that subject, no matter what it is. Excuse me, just a mimosa, man. Yeah. And
that's one thing you would think about is all the bubbles.
Yeah, right. Put it right back up. That's how you know it's authentic. Yeah. So I would say seek advice. Seek advice from people that know more things than you do, and then learn from that. And then have a discussion. Like that was like my step. Like logo, seek out, and I discussed it with my close friends, what I was thinking and what they thought about it, and the next areas I should move. And then after that's already said and done, I sat down and I taught myself everything. I watched I was like up to like 3 a.m. Like probably the week before I popped that first champagne bottle for the promo. I was watching like YouTube videos, just like I was watching podcasts, like different types of podcasts, like not just sports or just like several types, just to see how like they interacted or like how they talked about like different discussions or how they switched topics and stuff. Just like now I'm teaching myself, and then after that, like that's when I was like, okay, I'm ready, like to let's go, like let's see what happens. And it was like a full 5 steps that I had to take before I could actually like at least put out the promo video, you know? And after that, I was like, okay. It really isn't a money thing because like I just wanted my podcast to have video because I love facial expressions.
Right.
But you don't really need that. Obviously, the podcast is just you and your voice and a listener. That's what it is. So you don't really need all that stuff, but it's just how I envision my podcast going. So
isn't it weird how you like when you listen to podcasts now, you listen with a different ear? It's like you listen on the production side, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh, this stuff,
that's
right?
dope. That's dope.
Yeah,
That transition was sick. I hope y'all
right.
caught that.
Yeah, it's
You know,
it's like, man,
yeah,
you think about like, do I need segments? Do I need this? But
yeah. I
no.
mean, because I watch the Joe Budden podcast. I watch All the Smoke with
Hmm.
Matt Barnes
That's a good one.
and you know, Steven Jackson. I do. I don't watch Joe Rogan. I mean, I know that he's really popular, but I don't really care.
Do you
You
watch
know?
Brilliant Idiots?
Yeah. I checked them out, and then then I listened to your podcast,
Appreciate
and
you.
you know, just and other small podcasts as well, because we're at the same type of level.
Hmm.
We're not national. We're not national
Yeah,
podcasts. So like, there's also tidbits I can learn from everyone else too. So I was just doing my research before I started all this stuff.
yeah. No, man, I think that's very inspirational to anybody who's trying to embark in some sort of creative, and not even just creative, just something new. You know,
New, exactly. Yeah.
it's. I think it's healthy. Expect like, and you know, it makes us sound old when we say coming at our age or the age we're at, but it's literally just it's. I look at it like life is just like in chapters, and now it's like we close the chapter of college, we close the chapter of partying and getting all that out of our system, and that was all great and that was fun. My friend asked me this on the podcast. My friend Kiara asked me this on the podcast. She was like, "Oh my God, you're about to turn 30. Like, are you scared?" I was like, it was weird because I had like actually thought about that a week before.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, like I was excited for it only because my coworker, shout out to BK, she trained me at the job, and she was like, she's an older lady, I guess. That's not nice to say, but you know, she's in her,
He's mature.
Yeah, she's mature. She's in her 50s, and she was like,
Mm-hmm.
the day before my birthday, right? She goes, "Hey, so today's your like last day of your 20s." I was like, "You're right." She's like, "You should probably like go home and like just like write some stuff down." I was like, man, I'm like trying to make writing a hobby too. Like I'm trying to make writing like I do with reading,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not at the level with the writing yet where I'm just like sitting down and like writing my thoughts. I was like, I'm definitely gonna do that. So I came home and I just like sat down. I just started writing, right? And I was writing. I probably have to read that back because I don't even know how I started. But I was writing. I was like, and then I started listing like things I did in my 20s, right? Graduation, moving to San Antonio, moving back to Houston, right? All these things. I moved in with Eric, then moved into my own apartment, like a lot of things, right? I was like, man, 20s were fun. And then I looked at a list. I was like, damn, like if I would have looked at that like on the last day, or like if I would have been like just turning 20, someone else said you would do all these things. I'm like, dude, that's a good 20s, right?
That's a good 20, yeah.
So that got me so excited for the 30s. I was like, damn, and I already had the idea of the podcast. I was already like training for the half. I was like, I'm already doing like a few like big things in the 30s. I was like, man, the 30s are gonna be so great if I'm starting off like this. So it got me so excited. And she was like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting you to say that. You know, people get scared of turning 30.
Oh, the 30,
like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh man, I'm like, dude, I am like looking forward to it. So it's and that's a big that's mostly due to just stepping out of my comfort zone and starting in the podcast, like starting in the creative lifestyle. And that's been probably the biggest blessing this year for me. You know, it's just been that, not because of I'm getting paid for it or something like that, but because how I feel mentally because of it. You know, then that's why if it was like if the podcast was to stop after this recording, like I would still be like grateful to that journey, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's
well, I think it's a great place to stop, man.
I agree. I love these conversations because they always feel like, wow, it was already there.
Yeah. I mean, it could go on and on, honestly. So
but I do appreciate you for having me on.
Definitely, man. I appreciate you taking your time out. Talk with your boy.
I've been telling people about this. I'm gonna be blasting this all on my Instagram. So we're gonna get you to 500 because I need that shirt.
Hey,
I need
5500.
that shirt.
It's gonna be dope. I promise, man. Before I go, tell the subscribers and my followers where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, you can find the podcast is called Two Mics. It's the number 2 and Mics, MICS, and it's on Spotify and iTunes. You probably have to spell it all the way out because your boy's not famous enough to have it pop out right at the beginning yet. You know, the number 2 is taken by, you know, some rapper named Tupac. So
yeah,
you know, we got some work to do, guys.
Yeah, hey, break down some walls, but don't worry, we're gonna put it down below, so we can get that for sure. And if you made it this far listening, we want to say thank you. We appreciate you listening. You didn't have to, but you did. So, that being said, subscribe and like and repost and comment. Do all that stuff to make my shit hot. After you watch this video and subscribe. So, thank you again. And that was episode 3 of Snapbacks and Mimosas. Peace, man.